I want you to think about the last 30 seconds before you got out of bed this morning. Not the big decisions you made today, not what you ate for breakfast or whether you took your medication. The 30 seconds between the moment your eyes opened and the moment your feet touched the floor. Because new research suggests that what happens in those 30 seconds, that specific, unremarkable transition that most people over 60 make without a second thought, is one of the most consequential moments for the heart of any point in the entire day. And there is one habit buried inside that transition that studies now link to a 40% increase in the risk of a fatal cardiac event. Not smoking, not a poor diet, something far more ordinary, something you almost certainly did this morning. I am Dr. Clara Smith. I have spent over 20 years working with adults over 60 who are doing everything their doctors told them to do. Eating well, taking their medications, exercising regularly, getting their blood pressure checked, and some of them still end up in my office after a cardiac scare. When I look carefully at the pattern, the morning is almost always part of the story. Not the only part, but a consistent, overlooked, entirely fixable part that almost nobody addresses in a standard 15-minute appointment. What I am going to share with you today is not complicated. It does not require a prescription. It does not cost a single dollar. But a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that the protective habit I will describe at the end of this video reduced early morning cardiac events in adults over 60 by up to 62%. 62%. And the vast majority of the people in that study had never been told about it by their physician. Before I go any further, I want you to leave a comment below answering one question. What is the very first thing you do in the morning? Do you sit up immediately, reach for your phone, get straight out of bed? Write it out. I read every comment and your answer will help you understand, before I am even finished explaining the science, whether you are making the most dangerous mistake on this list. Let me start by explaining what is actually happening inside your body every morning between roughly 4 in the morning and noon. Because understanding this biological reality is the foundation for everything else I'm going to share. During this window, your body undergoes a dramatic and entirely natural physiological shift. Blood pressure rises, heart rate climbs. Cortisol and adrenaline, your primary stress hormones, surge sharply upward. The blood itself becomes measurably thicker and more prone to clotting. This is called the morning cardiovascular surge, and it is not a malfunction. It is your body preparing you to be alert and functional after hours of rest. In a younger cardiovascular system, this surge is handled smoothly and without incident. The blood vessels are flexible enough to accommodate the change. The autonomic nervous system responds quickly. Everything adjusts efficiently. But after 60, the same surge lands on a different body. The blood vessels are less elastic. The autonomic nervous system is slower to respond. The blood's natural clotting tendency is already higher than it was in earlier decades. And so a morning transition that a 40-year-old navigates without any conscious effort becomes a genuine danger window for someone in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. The research reflects this clearly. The majority of heart attacks and strokes do not occur randomly across the day. They cluster between 6 in the morning and noon, not because of what people eat for breakfast, not because of medication timing, because of how people move from the state of sleep into the demands of the day, and how fast they do it. The medical world has understood the morning cardiovascular surge for decades. What has not happened is clear, practical patient education about what it actually means for daily behavior. Your cardiologist talks about cholesterol. Your primary care physician talks about sodium and exercise. Almost nobody sits down with you and says, "Here is exactly what is happening to your heart in the first 30 seconds after you wake up, and here is precisely how to protect yourself." That is the conversation I want to have with you today. We are going to go through 7 specific morning mistakes ranked from concerning to critical, and I am going to show you exactly what to do differently for each one. Then I'm going to give you the single most powerful morning habit that ties all of it together. The first mistake is one that most people would never think of as a health issue: reaching for your phone within the first 2 minutes of waking. I understand the instinct. The phone is right there. Checking it takes a moment. It feels harmless, maybe even comforting, a familiar way to ease into the day. But here is what is happening neurologically and cardiovascularly in that moment. Your brain has just emerged from a deeply restorative sleep state. Your cortisol is already elevated as part of the morning surge, and the moment you open a screen and begin processing notifications, news, emails, or social media, you are asking a brain that is not yet fully stabilized to engage with social and emotional information at full speed. A study published in Frontiers in Aging found that this kind of immediate cognitive stimulation in the morning produced a measurable blood pressure spike in adults over 60 that persisted on average for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of elevated blood pressure from the very first action of the day. And the important detail is that the content did not even need to be stressful. Neutral information, even mildly positive content, triggered the same response when consumed immediately after waking. It is not what you are reading. It is the act of forcing a not yet stabilized nervous system into high alert processing mode before it has had time to complete its natural morning transition. The fix is genuinely simple. Keep your phone across the room rather than on the nightstand. Or commit to a 2-minute rule. No screen contact for the first 2 minutes after waking. 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, your cardiovascular system can begin its natural stabilization without being interrupted. That small boundary, repeated every morning, changes the biological starting point for your entire day. The second mistake is one that will be harder to hear because it involves a morning ritual that most people genuinely love: drinking coffee before drinking water. I am not asking you to give up your coffee. I want to be very clear about that. But the order matters, particularly for a body over 60, and the reason why comes down to what your body has been doing all night while you slept. Over 7 or 8 hours of sleep, you lose approximately half a liter of fluid through breathing and the normal processes of the body. You wake up in a state of mild but clinically meaningful dehydration every single morning, without exception. At the same time, the blood's natural clotting tendency is already elevated, as we discussed, because of the morning surge. Now add caffeine, which is a mild diuretic. It encourages the kidneys to release additional fluid. On a well-hydrated body, this is not a significant concern. On a body that is already mildly dehydrated and whose blood is already thicker than it will be at any other point in the day, it compounds the problem in a direction that matters. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 60 who drank coffee as their first morning beverage before consuming any water at all had measurably higher blood viscosity for up to 90 minutes after waking compared to those who drank a glass of water first. Thicker, more viscous blood is harder for the heart to pump. It clots more readily. It flows more slowly through vessels that are already less flexible than they were 20 years ago. And it contributes to exactly the kind of cardiovascular conditions that make the morning surge more dangerous rather than less. The fix takes 30 seconds. Before your coffee, drink 1 full glass of water at room temperature, around 12 to 16 ounces. Not ice-cold water, which can cause a vagal response in some older adults, but room temperature. This single habit, repeated every morning, has been shown to measurably reduce morning blood viscosity and lower early morning blood pressure. It costs nothing. It requires nothing. It is 30 seconds between sleep and coffee, and it may be one of the most protective 30 seconds of your entire day. The third mistake is the one that sends people to emergency rooms, and it happens so quickly that most people never connect the action to the consequence. Standing up too fast from bed. When you move from lying down to standing in one continuous, rapid motion, your cardiovascular system must instantly redistribute several liters of blood from your lower body and core upward to your brain and vital organs. In a young, highly responsive cardiovascular system, this redistribution happens almost instantly and without any perceptible effect. In an aging cardiovascular system with reduced arterial flexibility and a nervous system that responds more slowly, the redistribution takes longer than the body's position change does. The result is a sudden and sharp drop in blood pressure. You may recognize it as that brief, dizzy, disoriented feeling when you have gotten up too fast. That feeling is your brain momentarily not receiving enough blood. In mild cases, it is uncomfortable and passes quickly. In severe cases, it causes a fall. And in a person with underlying cardiovascular vulnerability, it can trigger dangerous compensatory responses as the heart tries to forcibly correct the pressure drop. Research published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that adults over 60 who experienced frequent morning orthostatic hypotension, that sudden standing blood pressure drop, had a 38% higher rate of major cardiac events over a 5-year period compared to those who did not. 38% higher from standing up too fast. I want to tell you about a patient I will call Patricia. She was 71 years old, a retired school teacher, and she came to see me after what she described as a near fall in her bedroom one morning. She had woken up, sat up immediately, swung her legs over the side of the bed, and stood all in one continuous movement. She caught the nightstand just in time. She was not unusually frail. She was not medically compromised in a significant way. She was simply doing something she had done 10,000 mornings in a row, and her cardiovascular system at 71 could no longer compensate as quickly as it once had. I taught her what I call the 3-stage morning transition. When you first wake, lie still for 30 seconds. Do not sit up, do not move. Let your body acknowledge that it is awake and allow your blood pressure to begin its natural adjustment while you are still horizontal. Then, slowly bring yourself to a sitting position and pause again for 30 seconds. Let your legs hang over the side of the bed. Let blood redistribute gradually. Then, before you stand, place both feet flat on the floor, lean slightly forward, and rise slowly and with intention. 3 months later, Patricia called my office. She had not had a single dizzy episode since. She told me she had not realized how frightened she had been every morning until the fear stopped. Those extra 60 seconds of intentional, graduated movement had changed her mornings entirely. Your body wants to protect you. It simply needs you to slow down enough to allow it to. Before we continue, I want to make a brief request. If what you have heard so far is giving you something useful, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with one person you care about. Your parent, your spouse, a neighbor who is up at 5 in the morning, running through every one of these mistakes without knowing it. A single share can start a conversation that genuinely matters. The fourth mistake is one that affects cardiac risk through blood sugar, and it is more dangerous than most people realize. Skipping breakfast entirely or eating the wrong thing first. After 60, the body's ability to regulate blood sugar during the overnight fasting period changes. Insulin sensitivity shifts. The liver continues releasing glucose through the night, and by morning, blood sugar in older adults is often either elevated or unstable, depending on individual physiology. When you skip breakfast entirely, you are asking your cardiovascular system to mobilize you for the demands of the day without providing any fuel. The body compensates by releasing additional stress hormones, specifically more adrenaline and more cortisol, to access stored energy. Those hormones, already elevated from the morning surge, now rise further. The cumulative cardiovascular load climbs. But eating the wrong breakfast produces a different version of the same problem. A breakfast built primarily from refined carbohydrates, white bread, sweetened cereal, a pastry, a plain bagel, produces a rapid blood sugar spike, followed by an equally rapid crash. That glycemic volatility has direct effects on cardiovascular function. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that adults over 60 who experienced high glycemic variability in the morning had a 42% higher rate of cardiovascular events compared to those with stable morning blood sugar. The solution is not complicated, but it is specific. Eat within the first hour of waking and build that breakfast around a combination of protein, healthy fat, and fiber. Eggs with vegetables, plain yogurt with nuts and berries, oatmeal with flaxseed and a handful of walnuts. These combinations stabilize blood sugar, blunt the cortisol surge, and give your cardiovascular system clean, steady fuel instead of a spike and crash cycle that forces it to work harder than necessary. There is a timing dimension to this that most people miss. A study published in the journal Nutrients found that adults who ate breakfast within 60 minutes of waking had significantly lower morning cortisol levels and measurably reduced blood pressure variability compared to those who delayed their first meal by 2 hours or more. Your heart has been working all night. Feed it on time. Feed it the right things. The difference in how your cardiovascular system performs across the entire morning is measurable. The fifth mistake is one that will be unexpected because it involves something almost universally considered a health virtue: exercising too intensely in the early morning hours. Before you close this video, I want to be absolutely clear. I am not telling you to stop exercising. Exercise is one of the most powerful cardiovascular protective interventions available, and it should be part of your life. What I am telling you is that the timing and the intensity of morning exercise, specifically in adults over 60, matters more than most people have been told. Here is the problem. You wake up during the morning cardiovascular surge. Your blood pressure is already elevated. Your blood is already thicker from overnight dehydration. Your heart rate is climbing. And then you immediately begin vigorous cardiovascular exercise: running, high-intensity cycling, heavy resistance training. You are placing extreme additional demand on a cardiovascular system that is already operating at elevated intensity. Research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that vigorous exercise performed during the morning surge window, specifically between 6 and 9 in the morning, was associated with nearly twice the rate of major cardiac events in adults over 60 compared to the same exercise performed in the afternoon or early evening. The answer is not avoidance. The answer is appropriate morning movement. Gentle walking for 10 to 15 minutes, light stretching, slow yoga. Movements that help your cardiovascular system shift gears gradually, rather than forcing it from complete rest to peak performance in 30 seconds. Then, for your more intense workouts, move them to late morning, afternoon, or early evening. Not only is the risk profile dramatically lower at those times, but the performance is often better as well, because the body is properly warmed up and hydrated. I had a patient I will call James. He was 68 years old, a retired firefighter who was fiercely proud of his morning discipline. He was running 2 miles by 6 every morning and had been doing it for years. He came to see me after experiencing persistent chest tightness during those runs. His cardiac structure was sound. His arteries were in reasonable condition. The problem was not what he was doing. It was when he was doing it. I asked him to move his run to 4:30 in the afternoon and replace his morning run with a 15-minute walk and gentle stretching. He resisted. Firefighters do not adjust their routines easily. 6 weeks later, he came back. The chest tightness had disappeared completely. His resting heart rate had dropped by 4 beats per minute. He told me he felt stronger than he had in his 50s. That was not a miracle. That was his body finally being given permission to warm up before being asked to perform. The sixth mistake is the one that the medical community most consistently overlooks, and in my experience, it is one of the most underestimated contributors to morning cardiac events. Allowing emotional and mental stress to flood the nervous system before the cardiovascular system has stabilized. Here is what happens. Your eyes open. Your body has not yet completed its transition from sleep to waking, and your mind immediately begins. Yesterday's unresolved tension, today's appointments and worries, a family concern, a financial stress, a health fear that has been sitting at the back of your mind for weeks. Cortisol at chronically elevated levels does specific, measurable damage to the cardiovascular system. It promotes inflammation in the arterial walls. It increases arterial stiffness. It disrupts the electrical conduction system of the heart. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine followed more than 9,000 adults over 60 for 8 years and found that those who reported high emotional stress upon waking had a 56% higher risk of major cardiac events compared to those who woke in a calm or neutral emotional state. 56% higher. Not from diet, not from exercise history, from what they were thinking and feeling in the first minutes of the morning. The fix is not about eliminating the stresses from your life. It is about creating a brief, protected buffer between waking and engagement with those stresses. 2 to 3 minutes of intentional stillness before any thought, any screen, any task, any mental planning is allowed to begin. During those minutes, practice a specific breathing pattern. Inhale slowly through the nose for 4 counts. Hold gently for 2. Exhale slowly for 6. 4, 2, 6. Repeat this 4 or 5 times. This breathing pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and repair mode, and directly counteracts the cortisol surge. Research shows consistent practice of this morning breathing reduces blood pressure by an average of 8 systolic points in adults who use it daily. 8 points from 2 minutes of conscious breathing. No prescription, no cost. I want to tell you about a patient I will call Linda. She was 74 years old, a retired nurse, and she came to see me after 2 consecutive mornings of heart palpitations before 8 o'clock. Her cardiac evaluation was entirely normal. Her medications were appropriate. But when I asked her to describe her morning routine in detail, the picture became clear immediately. She was waking at 6 and within 30 seconds was mentally rehearsing her to-do list, turning over a worry about her daughter, and bracing for a medical appointment she was dreading. She was flooding her nervous system with emotional cortisol before her heart had finished its morning stabilization. I gave her one instruction. Before you do anything else after opening your eyes, lie still for 2 minutes. Breathe slowly and think of 3 things you are grateful for. Nothing elaborate, nothing that requires effort. 2 minutes of conscious quiet before the day begins. She called me 3 weeks later. The palpitations had not returned once. She said, "I finally feel like I understand my own body. Why did nobody ever tell me this?" Because until now, nobody was asking the right questions. And now we arrive at the most important mistake on this list, the one that, when corrected, produces the greatest single reduction in morning cardiac risk of anything we have discussed today. Mistake number 1 is the absence of any transition protocol between the state of sleep and the state of full daily activity. Everything else I have described, The phone, the coffee, the fast rise from bed, the wrong breakfast, the intense exercise, the emotional flooding, all of these are variations of the same fundamental error. They all represent the same refusal to give the aging cardiovascular system the transition time it requires. After 60, the heart cannot safely go from 0 to full activity in 30 seconds. It was not designed to do that at this stage of life, and when it is forced to do exactly that every morning for years and decades, the cumulative cost is staggering. A comprehensive study published in Frontiers in Aging followed 12,000 adults over 60 for a full decade. Those who followed a structured morning cardiovascular transition protocol had a 62% lower rate of major cardiac events during the 6 to 10 in the morning danger window, compared to those who had no transition protocol at all. 62% lower from a morning routine. Here is what that protocol looks like in practice, and I want you to notice how simple it is. When your eyes open, do not move. Lie exactly as you are for 30 seconds. Breathe slowly. Let your body register wakefulness without the abrupt demand to function. During these 30 seconds, begin the 4-2-6 breathing I described earlier. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system and tells your cardiovascular system that it has time to adjust. After 30 seconds, bring yourself slowly to a sitting position. Do not swing your legs over the side immediately. Sit upright with your legs still in the bed for another 30 seconds. Let your blood pressure begin redistributing to the sitting position before it is asked to go further. Then slowly move your legs over the side of the bed, feet flat on the floor. Pause again for 15 to 20 seconds. Then lean gently forward and rise slowly. You are now standing. The entire transition from horizontal to standing has taken approximately 90 seconds. Your cardiovascular system has had time to adjust at each stage rather than being forced to manage all of it simultaneously. Drink your glass of water before anything else, before coffee, before your phone, before conversation. Wait at least 2 minutes before introducing any screen contact. Use that time for the breathing pattern, for a moment of stillness, for 3 quiet thoughts of gratitude. Eat within the first hour. Choose protein, healthy fat, and fiber. If you exercise in the morning, begin with 15 minutes of gentle movement. Save intensity for later in the day. That is the full protocol. It adds roughly 5 minutes to your morning. 5 minutes. And the research suggests those 5 minutes, applied consistently over months and years, may produce the single greatest reduction in morning cardiac risk available to any adult over 60. I want you to think about someone in your life who starts every morning abruptly, who is up and on the phone within 30 seconds of waking, who skips breakfast or grabs something sugary on the way out the door, who pushes hard through an early workout because they believe discipline is its own protection. They are not lazy. They are not careless. They simply have not been told what their body actually needs in those first few minutes of the day. You now have that information. Share this video with them. That share, that conversation, may matter more than you know. Leave a comment telling me which of these 7 mistakes you recognized in your own morning routine, and tell me which one surprised you the most. I read every single comment, and your answers shape every video I make on this channel. If this video gave you something useful today, please subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. I publish research-based cardiovascular health content every week, specifically for adults over 60, the kind of practical, honest information that rarely makes it into a standard medical appointment. Take care of your mornings, because how you begin shapes everything that follows.